Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. If you're watching this live, otherwise, welcome to the replay stream. That makes no sense, but there it is. We are about 10 minutes before getting started. If you are watching this live, you can join us on our website at the chat as well at professormesser.com/live. Today's event is the A+ study group. We will be doing A+ Q&A and watching birds. This is what I'm doing. Where's the birds? There they are. They're coming in and out. There have been some finches, some bluebirds while I've been setting up. It's very zen. The running water. It's kind of nice today, isn't it? What is it? 78 degrees in the backyard of Messer Studios. Bright and sunny. I haven't looked at the latest National Hurricane Service. There's supposed to be a storm heading my way. Number 16. Tropical Depression 16 is formed in the southwestern Caribbean. It seems like every time we're doing this now, we're doing a hurricane update. Well, it's that time of year. Wind speeds and probabilities put it, well, it's heading straight for the studios. What can I tell you? Let's put it up on the screen. There it is. Heading straight for us. There we go. Sort of straight for us. Kind of straight. It'll be coming straight for us. I know how this works. They started off as going like to Louisiana, and then slowly it heads for my house. It's little things. Let's see spaghetti models and look at these models, which they tell us do not look at these models. But I do. Let's see. The National Hurricane Center says by the time it gets here, oh, look, it'll be a hurricane. Fantastic. Well, the good part is that I've not really brought in everything yet or taken out everything since I brought it in for the last one. So looks like it right now, it will not be on top of us, but I know how this goes. This is just an inevitability. So for Sunday day, this is what I will be doing. I guess I need to get water and stuff. If we look at the track guidance, if we look at the models, which you're not supposed to do, you're not supposed to look at these meteorology models. You're supposed to ignore them. Don't look at them. That's not where it goes. Don't pay any attention to this. But and they're right, because it hardly ever ends up going where you think it's going to go. That's interesting what the models are saying. They still are kind of leaning to the west, but most of them are coming through this Pensacola, between Pensacola and Tallahassee, that part of the Panhandle. So we'll see how this goes. It'll be interesting the way this goes. So it's time to get all of this set up. We've got a study group today. Let's not worry about hurricanes. Let's get our act together, shall we? We're starting the study group in about 6.5 minutes, everybody. Back to the chat room. Enough of the weather, the things that are happening. Let's put a link in so everybody can find the study group. I should probably put live A+ study group. professormesser.com/live. Oh, I need to update the website so it actually says that on the website too. Let's do that. Let's go to the website. Is it just me or is Chrome not quite right? The answer is Chrome is not quite right. Let's find our settings in our promo bar. Let's modify this to say my live A+ study group is right now. It's happening now. Happening now. Click here to join us, and it should be /live. It's noisy out there, isn't it? Let's reset our cookie so that people will see it even if they've hidden the bar. And it's updated. See how that works? Welcome, folks. Let's make sure everybody's getting in okay. Let's check our analytics. Yes, there's folks on the stream. Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. I see my calendar has just told me that I have a study group today. That's useful. It's probably too late. If I'm having to just now realize that a study group is going on, I'm in significant trouble. There's a lot of stuff that happens before I go live. A lot of things. First, I have to clean the desk. That alone Takes forever. And even then, it's not totally clean. You can see I've still got things. What is this? I've got some type of, oh, it's a coupon. I have a coupon here. That's important. There's flash drives sitting here. Chapstick is over there. You can probably see it. You did. You did make a live one. Oh, boy. Virginia's checked in. Welcome. Let's see what else we're able to get ready here. I think I've got everything ready to go. I think, okay, the tweet has gone out. So I see that. The email should have gone out. Facebook should have been updated. Those things should be in place. The Pennsylvania PA's in. Yeah, I did have a power cord problem. I turned on the system that does this video switching that goes back and forth to me. I turned it on and was nothing. I got zero, nothing happening there. But I just, after last week's study group, I usually have a week between study groups. After last week's study group, I didn't because of the last time we did a study group. We had the hurricane that went through, so I had to adjust everything. We did Network Plus last week out of order. And I went back and I rearranged a lot of the power systems that are in my studio. So we've got these, to the left and right of me are 19-inch racks, these half-size racks that all of my equipment is in effectively. There's some that are in the other room. But pretty much everything is right here in these racks. And I adjusted them around because I have these power distribution systems, really just power strips that are IP addressable. So I can sit here at the desk and click buttons and things will power on and power off. It's fantastic. I don't have to figure it out. But I moved them all around because I have 4 separate power strips, 2 on each side. And I had separated out the power strips so that one of the problems is that it would, oh no, I got other stuff going on. I separated out the power strips so that everything for a live stream would be on just one power strip instead of both of them, because I was having to pull out 4 separate power strips, and there's really nothing you saw, but it was tedious on my side, more tedious than it needed to be. So I was trying to straighten them up, and in the process, I unplugged everything. So nothing would, not everything, but I unplugged a few things I shouldn't have. And so that was one of the things that I had to do was fix that. But that was an easy fix. It's one of those where just had to find the right thing to plug in. All right, I got that taken care of. Oh, I need to change a thing with my security and this. Where is security? Security. Firewall. Where is it? Sharing. Da, 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 da. Ba, ba, ba. You hear it outside. It's very nice out today. We'll get started in about a minute and a half, everybody. Maybe, if I can get my act together. Trying to get my act together. There we go. My act is sufficiently together. We didn't really do a check on cameras. There's camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Let's start up camera 4. Is camera 4 there? Yeah, it is. Okay, so we're good. That's pretty good. What else are we going to do today? Okay, let's hide things that are on my screen here. So I got more room to work with, more room to chat with people. Ba, ba, ba. And remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, you want to follow along with the live chat. It's professormesser.com/live. There isn't a chat on YouTube. I've disabled the chat on YouTube. So you will not be able to see one there. It doesn't exist. But now it's time for me to turn on my presentation. That's the one thing I haven't tested yet. Oh, it worked. Well, thank goodness for that. It's the little things, isn't it? Okay, it is time to get started. Let's get rid of our bird feeder and the nice soothing sounds of the Messer Studios backyard. And that's in place. Oh, you know what I don't have in place is my pinpoint, so I can highlight things on my screen. Let's put that in place. Pinpoint, if I spell it right. That's the little app I use that when you see the yellow circle going around my screen, that's what that does. That's what the app does that does that little yellow circle. Okay, let's get started, everybody. This has got to be great. Hang on, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2017 Professor Messer A+ Study Group, the live event we do once a month where I ask you questions directly from the A+ exam objectives, and interactively online through the magic of the internet, you get to participate. You get to answer along with everybody else, and we will see how this goes. I've got a number of questions all set up for you. I've got plenty of things that I wrote a week ago, so I don't even remember what they are, but it's nice that we're able to have these available. And thank you for joining us. If you're watching this in the replay, you won't be able to follow along live with what we're doing, but you will be able to follow along with the questions on your screen. So I'll explain more about that in just a moment. My name is James Messer. I'll be your host here from the world headquarters in Tallahassee, Florida for Messer Studios. We have so much to go through today. I want to get right to it. Before we jump into the Q&A, I want to remind you during this first hour, we're going to do this Q&A. After the first hour of Q&A, we shift gears and go to what I call the after show, but really has turned into the same show, just the second hour. And I open up the phone lines, and I'll give you more information on the phone lines and the information when we get there. Don't forget about following us on the Twitter, on the YouTube. You type ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, automatically get notifications when we go live, automatically get notifications when I put new videos up, just something you can work through. Don't forget about our voucher discounts. Don't pay full price for your vouchers. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. You can save a little money on your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus exams. If you're watching this for continuing education credit, perhaps you already have your A+ certification, your Network Plus certification, your Security Plus certification. You're looking for CEUs. You can also use this for other CEUs as well. You can find out all about the CEU process at the CompTIA website, and you'll have to read through it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to figure out, but once you've deciphered it, it's pretty straightforward. Sometime during this first hour, I'm going to give you a special code that you will be able to use, and I'll give you instructions on how to earn or receive that digital CEU certificate from me. So keep listening during this first hour. We don't have any idea when it's going to happen. Should be interesting. The A+ exam consists of two separate exams. The current versions, as we sit here in October of 2017, is the 229.01 and the 229.02. You have to pass both of those to earn your A+ certification. If you only pass one of them and they retire the exam, they retire them about every 3 years. If they retire the exam, you have to start all over again. So make sure that you get both of these exams in before the exam series is retired and they update those videos. There is certain ways, if you already have earned your A+ certification, to renew that A+ certification. Once you earn it, it's good for 3 years. Unless you renew it, then it's good for another 3 years. And they've got renewal exams, higher level exams. There are some really nice CEU earning options on the CompTIA website. You don't have to take the exams again to renew your A+ certification. They want to make it easy for you. So check the CompTIA website for more information on that. There's two exams you have to worry about for this certification. One of them is the 229.01. The other is the 229.02. There's different amounts of content on each of those. And usually I tell people to study one exam at a time. Don't go in and take your exam and expect to be taking both exams on the same day, unless you're really, really, really knowledgeable on this content. Even when I used to take these exams, did not want to take both on the same day. You study for one, take the first exam, study for the second, take the second exam. And I think you will be much better off if you do that. I also want to remind you that some of you have noticed I have pop quiz questions that I put into book form. There are over 1,300 questions for both the 901 and 902 that you can get. All of these are available on my website, ProfessorMesser.com/PQC. I have performance-based questions in here. There are many multiple choice questions in here. Some that have include some test tips. I've got some of that in these books. It's all a digital PDF as well, just something that might help you through the process. There are also some free questions. So it doesn't have to be something you pay for. The free questions are on my website at ProfessorMesser.com/popquiz. And I've got hundreds of A+ questions out there. So that may be something to be consider whenever you're studying. It's always good to have some Q&A. See if you can really understand what you've learned. It's one of the last things you should do before stepping into that exam room. Find them at professormesser.com/pop-quiz. Some of you have mentioned that you wanted an audio version of this study group, and you can find that at professormesser.com/podcasts. Podcasts. You'll find that available for the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups. So you can subscribe to those individually, and they'll just show up on whatever podcast listening device that you like to use. I update these usually the same day or the day after we do a study group, and we've been doing this since the beginning of the year. So we've got a good bit of podcasts there that you can go back and listen to. So if you're driving in your car, you want to use something that's low bandwidth, you want something that you can just put on there and it's automatically showing up, and you hit the play button, that may be a great way to do that. Well, today we're going to do Q&A. So here's how you do it. There is a website you can go to. You can pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. You can also go to the Socrative apps. This is Socrative is this process that I use, this third-party service that I use. So the Socrative Student app is what you want to put on your mobile device, and that Socrative Student app is one that you want to put in the room name of Professor Messer. All one word, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you do that, you'll be able to see a question that I've put up. The first question we do is one to see if you're able to get into Socrative, see if you're able to properly click on the different things that are on the screen. This is a great test to see if you're able to get there. You should see a question there. In fact, the question that is there is Willie Anderson, Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, and Jack Nicklaus hold the record for most U.S. Open victories. And based on those names, it must be golf. That has to be golf, right? How many? Because there are different U.S. Opens here in the United States. There's a tennis U.S. Open. There's others as well. The one we're talking about here is the golf U.S. Open. How many victories do they each have? They share the record for most U.S. Open victories. No Googling. Just take a guess at what this happens to be. Now, hopefully you're able to get into Socrative by going to professormesser.com/QA. You should be able to see the question on the screen. You should be able to see the answers. In fact, the answers that you are answering, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We have a nice bell curve going there. I wonder if that was intentional. You can see 35% of you have answered 5. That's the one that most of you have answered. Not a majority, but most of you, to be able to get there. It's a nice way to be able to see the questions, answer them, and in real time, we can see what people are answering to them. Notice I don't have your names in here. There's no way to tell where this came from. You can feel comfortable about just taking a guess and answering, because nobody is going to care whether you get it right or wrong, except for you, which is the most important person. Let's go through this process and see how I do. You should be able to go to professormesser.com/QA and do that. Yeah, this must be a 902 question, right? Because it's about golf. So Willie Anderson, Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, and Jack Nicklaus hold the record for the most U.S. Opens. How many victories each do they have? The answer might surprise you. Actually, it may not surprise you at all. But here's the answer. Willie Anderson, Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, 4 U.S. Open victories each. And the reason I mention this today is that October the 4th, today, is National Golf Lovers Day. So maybe there's some golf lovers watching that are on the live stream. Maybe some of you just like to watch, some of you like to play. It's a beautiful sport, and today's National Golf Lovers Day. I'm not sure if we're supposed to love golf today or we're supposed to love a golf lover today. Either way, I guess, is fine. One of those. I don't play golf, the chat room is asking. Not a big golf player. I have played golf. I feel like maybe I've played golf now. Isn't that it? Once you've played golf, I've played golf. I'm done, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Let's do another question. Let's get into the A+ questions, though. Enough of the talking and being able to get there and have these here. Let's do a CompTIA A+ question. You'll notice one of the things that I do on the A+ exam, one of the things you find, in fact, is there is the first set of questions that you get on the exam are what we call performance-based questions. These are questions that are not multiple choice. They are often the fill in the blank. They might be matching questions. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a particular function. One of these is really going to be what you would see the first time you sit down at the exam. And if you're not ready for it, it can be a little off-putting because you're not ready. You're thinking you're going to get a multiple choice, and suddenly you've got these odd questions. In fact, I tell many people, you can skip over those, do all of your multiple choice, and then come back to them at the end. Just make sure you allocate enough time to come back to those questions. In fact, that might help you because the multiple choice questions tend to jog your memory about topics that you can then use on the performance-based questions. Well, enough of that. We have what I like to do on our study groups now is give you a performance-based question first thing so that you can experience at least a flavor of some of the things that you might run into on the exam. So here is your performance-based question we're going to start off with today. Order these technologies from highest throughput to lowest. And you'll notice it's a fill-in-the-blank option on Socrative. Now, if you think they're already in order from highest throughput to lowest, then your answer would be A, B, C, D, E. So maybe you can figure it out. Now, remember, don't answer in the chat room. Don't give me hints in the chat room. We're all in this separately. When I guess that's not exactly the term, is it? We're all in this with no help. We're all in this not together. You can, of course, find out how to answer this at professormesser.com/QA, and I'll be able to see what you put on the screen. I won't be showing it to you, but you go to professormesser.com/QA, and you will be able to see exactly what the responses are. This, by the way, is a pretty good example of the type of thing that you can expect to see on the exam because it gives you a set of topics. It's not asking you for any type of breakdown of definitions. It's not asking you what these things are. It's really asking you about what these things are. There's usually a couple of steps. So to be able to get through all of these, hopefully, this is something you'll be familiar with. Now, if you don't know what these things are, because if you're listening, by the way, let me tell you what these things are. A is SATA Revision 1.0. B is USB 2.0. C is 802.11n. D is USB 3.0. And E is IEEE 1394B. So hopefully you'll know what these things are. You'll be able to get through all of those. Now, of course, now we need to go through each one of these. We need to figure out what their throughput is, at least their maximum throughput, their highest throughput. And you want to put these in order from highest to lowest. It's another thing you want to think about when you're taking this exam. It might ask you to put them in order from lowest to highest. Make sure you don't mess that up either. Make sure you read through these questions. When I take my certification exams, I've taken quite a number of different certification exams from different companies. And it always seems as if I mess up reading at least one or two of the questions because I try to leave enough time at the end that I go through all of the questions again. My strategy is I go through all the questions, and then assuming I have time, hopefully I will, I go back to question number one and I read through every single question again and look at my answer. I may not change the answer, but now I'm reading through the question again, and then I realize, whoops, I missed a word. They said not. Or I missed a word. It said highest to lowest. I thought it was lowest to highest. That's one of those. So somebody in the chat room did the same thing. Like, oh, I did it backwards. I did it lowest to highest. So here's your opportunity to learn from this. You want to make all your mistakes today so that when you sit down for the exam, you can think about what you might have gone through before and you won't make those mistakes again. That's the whole objective of this study group, is to get things wrong. What an awful objective. Who came up with this? Yeah, I came up with this. Let's see what we did as far as answers. A number of you have answered now. So let's go through the answers for these. The technologies from lowest to highest. We can start with the highest and lowest. Notice we go from highest to lowest is what I asked of you. So the highest throughput, if we looked at this list, was D, USB 3.0, which I put these in megabits per second as the standard that I used here. But if we do the math in our head, shouldn't be too hard. 5,000 megabits per second is 5 gigabits per second. And of course, USB 3.0 does provide that level of speed. SATA Revision 1.0 comes in the number 2 spot at 1,500 megabits per second, or 1.5 gigabits per second. We've got a number that we have to think about when we look at these standards. So if you can look at a standard, know what the speed is, you're going to be in good shape with this question. The third one is IEEE 1394B, which is, anybody have an idea of what these happen to be? That's FireWire. So the FireWire B standard, in fact, FireWire B 800. USB 2.0, 480 megabits per second, and 802.11n. We're dealing with a lot of different standards when we work through these different the throughputs and working through those. So if you're someone who has struggled with this kind of question, this is a very common type of question that you will run into on the A+ exam. Not just one question with these types of settings, but different questions through multiple choice will also expect you to know what some of these standards are and what some of these throughputs are. Make sure you know them very well for the A+ certification. As you can see, I even put notes at the bottom that this comes directly from my 22901 1.7 computer interface speeds and distances. Yeah, these are very common. There's plenty to memorize on that 22901 exam, so make sure you do that. So I think we did pretty good on our answers. I flipped through and looked at a number of the answers, and most of you did pretty good with these. So well done. If you missed one or you weren't familiar with it, go back, because all of these standards are on the exam objectives. So make sure you know what these are about. Let's shift gears and do a multiple choice question, shall we? Maybe this one will be a little bit easier to be able to work through. This question deals with Microsoft Windows. What type of Microsoft Windows networking stores individual user accounts on each device? Which type of Microsoft Windows networking stores individual user accounts on each device? Our options are domain, workgroup, domain, home group, workgroup, Soho, and enterprise. So we've got 5 different choices to choose from. A is domain, B is home group, C is workgroup, D is Soho, and E is enterprise. What type of Microsoft Windows networking stores individual user accounts on each device? If you think you know the answer, please do not answer the question in the chat room. Make sure that you don't even put hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend that we're in the exam and that we really don't have any type of way to communicate with anyone else. We don't have a way to Google any of these things. We're going to take a stab at it. In fact, you shouldn't just be trying. If you get it wrong, that's fine. Being able to work through those pieces. Which type of Microsoft Windows networking stores individual user accounts on each device? Let's see how we've done with this one. Microsoft networking. This can be a little bit of a challenge if you've never worked with Microsoft networking before and all of the different flavors of it. And there are a number of different flavors. And of course, you need to know all of those flavors. I don't know why I'm calling them flavors, but you need to know all of those for the exam. Let's see how we did. Well, we got kind of a tie for first. 34% said home group, 31% said work group, 19% said domain, only 9% said enterprise, and only 6% said Soho. And I think your numbers were pretty good there. Well, they're pretty good. They're not exactly good, but they're pretty good. The 9% and 6%, for example, 6% Soho. There is no Microsoft networking store for Soho. There isn't one for enterprise. Let's find out what there is, and maybe that will help us answer this question. One way that you can connect Microsoft Windows devices together and have them share information is through home group. This is something that Microsoft introduced in Windows 7, and it includes Windows 8, in fact, in Windows 10, but of course on the CompTIA A+ exam, you only have to know up to Windows 8.1, which is pretty much knowing Windows 10 at this point. There's not too many differences between those two. This is home group support, allows you to put and share whatever media you have on all of the devices that are in your house, thus the name home as part of this home group, and you're able to simply use a single password. And you can see the passwords up on the screen here. It's this odd password that's in yellow down here. So that's the password for this particular home group. So you don't have to set up individual user accounts on everybody's computer. You don't have to give people a username and a password. You simply tell this computer to join the home group by giving everybody the shared password, and now everybody's machine is able to share the different media. So you might have audio on one computer, video files on another computer. You might have audio separated and spread through many different computers. As long as you're a member of the home group, you can see all of those. And if you put things into your movies directory, you put them into your documents directory, you put them into your audio music directory, then it automatically belongs to the home group. It's a very, very easy way to network devices together because you don't have to deal with multiple accounts and multiple usernames and multiple passwords. It's a much simpler way to network. Well, we have that simple way to network. Let's try thinking about a more difficult way to network. This is the way that traditionally we have used networking in Windows. It's a very powerful way to do networking in Windows that goes well above the capabilities of a home group. The first way to do this is with a work group. In work groups, everybody has a separate username and a separate password. And it's separated, in fact, on all of the different devices in the case of a work group, it's probably in a business, a small office, for example. This is one where if you need access to a machine, somebody has to create an account on that machine, a username and a password for you, and then give you that username and password to be able to use it. If you need access to another machine, we have to configure a username and password on the other machine. Hopefully it's the same username, and maybe you can make it the same password, but it might not be. It might be a completely different username and a completely different password on that machine. Then there might be a third device, and it might be a completely separate username with a completely separate password. So you need separate individual credentials whenever you need to use or access information that's on devices inside of a work group. Kind of a pain when you try to scale it up, isn't it? There's one server and all you're logging into is this one device. That makes it a little bit easier. But today we're logging into so many different devices. It's definitely not a centralized database of usernames and passwords. That's why most places will use the Microsoft domains. These domains allow us to have separate usernames and passwords for everybody, but it's all shared in one place. Now we've got one single username and password for a user. That's their username and that's their password, regardless of what they plan to access in that domain. So if they want to share a printer, they want to share some files that are on one device, they want to share files on a separate device, you're using exactly the same password, exactly the same username, regardless of what you're connecting to. It's one of the real benefits of Microsoft networking with domains is that everything is centralized. If you want to see what your machine is set up for, you can go to Control Panel System, and you can see right there at the bottom, it will tell you what your computer name is. It will tell you if you're in a work group. It'll tell you if part of a domain. Everything is listed right there. So let's go back and look at our question and see what this question was about. What type of Microsoft Windows networking stores individual user accounts on each device? Well, as we went through this list, there was no device. As I mentioned, there's no Windows networking called Soho networking. There's no Windows networking called enterprise networking. We did see home group, work group, and domain. We know it's not home group because we mentioned it uses just a single password. We don't even have an individual user account to deal with, which makes it easy. We know it's not domain because in domain we have a single user account for everything. We don't store individual user accounts on each device. In fact, it is the work group networking that does store individual user accounts. And that makes it very easy whenever you start looking through and trying to figure out, where do I get these things from? How does that work? It's a great way to do it. Domain is so simple. Work groups are somewhat a little more overhead, especially if multiple device. Home groups are really dead simple. Obviously, when most places are using domain, you can see why. It's so much simpler to use a domain. In this particular case, work group would be our right answer. If you answered C, work group, that is the Windows networking type that uses individual user accounts on each device. So 31% of you got that one absolutely right. I try to shoot for 50% of you getting these questions right. But if you didn't get it right, that's okay. Now you know what a domain does, you know what a work group does, you know what a home group does, and you can start to figure those things out if you're ever associated with that or run into that on the exam. Now you can work through all of those questions. Let's do another one. Here's a question for you that deals with addresses. Which of these addresses would be most likely assigned to your network adapter if a DHCP server was not available? Well, I have some options for you. Some of these are the 192.168.1.12, 10.1.1.12, 169.254.1.12, 127.0.1.12, and 172.20.1.12. So we got a mixture of IP addresses to sit through. So those of you that are working through this problem, we know the question is, which of these addresses would be most likely assigned to your network adapter if a DHCP server was not available? Which one of these would it be? So this is one where if you start looking through the questions, and this is people in the chat room like, yep, I've run into this before. This is a miserable problem to have to deal with. This is your clue, is that if a DHCP server was not available, how would we know that? Well, this helps clue us in on what this happens to be. So maybe you're familiar with this problem. Maybe you know what you can work through and being able to have that here. If you think you know the answer, you can absolutely choose to answer the question at professormesser.com/QA. Please do not have this in here as a possible answer. Please don't answer in the chat room. That would not be a good thing to do. We instead want to be able to answer professormesser.com/QA. Whenever I start looking at problems like this, I really have to break it down. There's so many different options in here. Maybe, in fact, you can go through the list and say, well, I know it's not this, and I know it's not this, so maybe it's one of these other three. So maybe there are some of them that you can automatically get rid of if you're thinking about them. Some of you do know. I'm going to take a sneak peek and see how we're doing with this one. Let's see how we do. In fact, let's look at the possible answers. Here we go. Let's see how we did. Well, we can see 69% of us, a good majority, have said 169.254.1.2 would be the IP address assigned to our network adapter if a DHCP server was not available. And then it drops way off. Well, we almost have a tie for second. Would be A, 192.168.1.2, and D, 127.0.1.2. Then we've got single digits. 8% have said 10.1.1.12, and then 4% said 172.20.1.12. So when you run into these problems and trying to figure out, it's sort of a two-step question, isn't it? Because I really wasn't giving you a very specific question. I was really giving you a scenario and having you piece together why all of these things were an issue. So maybe you can figure out what some of those pieces are. Let's talk about what these might be. Some of the IP addresses I put on the screen were private IP addresses. Private IP addresses, you may see these referred to as RFC 1918 addresses. These are not addresses that would be assigned if a DHCP server was unavailable. In fact, these addresses would be assigned by your DHCP server. So these are, if everything's working properly, I should probably see some addresses that look like this. So that's not our question, of course. So normally I would get a 10.0.0 address through 10.255.255.255. I get an address that was 172.16.0.0 through 172.31.255.255. And I might also get 192.168.0.0 through 192.168.255.255. So that's if everything's working properly. And if it's not working properly, if the DHCP server is not working properly, I'm probably getting what we call an API-PA address, which is an automatic private IP addressing address. This is one that is not able to communicate outside of our local subnet, but it does allow us to communicate with devices that are on our local subnet, which would be other servers, other workstations. It would be other DHCP servers, hopefully. If we are not able to communicate and get a DHCP address, our operating system is automatically going to assign one of these, which is where that automatic private IP addressing comes from. This range of addresses is 169.254.1.0 through 169.254.254.255. That's the range that really identifies an API-PA address. So if we have anything that's in that very, very big range, that's a huge range, isn't it? 169.254.1.0 through 169.254.254.255. That's an enormous range, but it starts with 169.254. If it starts with that, then we know we've got an API-PA address. So let's see if any of our answers start with a 169.254. And indeed, the 67% of you that answered 169.254.1.12, that is exactly what we would get if a DHCP server was not available. Notice the other addresses on here are the ones we just looked at. For example, 192.168, anything starting with that is a private IP address that would be assigned if everything was working normally with the DHCP server, as would be option B, which would be 10.1.1.12, as would be option C, which would be 172.20.1.12. Option D is not one we often see, but the 127.0.1.12 is a loopback address. And it technically anything that starts with a 127.0.0/8 is technically a loopback. So anything that starts with a 127, you should be able to ping and get a response. Doesn't exactly work that way in all operating systems, unfortunately, but the standard tells us that anything starting with a 127 is an internal loopback address that should always be there. Commonly, we see the loopback address being used as 127.0.0.1, which would be the first IP address available in those particular kinds of things. So that's one that we'd absolutely work through this. So one of those, only one in this particular example, would be associated with a problem with the DHCP server, and it would indeed be C 169.254.1.12. The 68% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. You'll notice with these questions, there are a lot of details in these questions. There are tons of details in these questions. And all of these little details are in my videos. I've gone through the entire CompTIA exam objectives, and I build all of my videos to match the exam objectives exactly. I don't put anything more into my videos or anything less than what is listed in those exam objectives. And of course, I recommend that you take notes, that you use plenty of study materials. One of the things I did was go through every single one of my videos, and I compiled my own set of notes that contain the most important things for my videos. These are my A+ course notes. I have a set for 229.01. I have a set for 229.02. These course notes contain everything that are in those exam videos, every important thing. So the hardware, the networking, the laptops, the interfaces, the memory, the troubleshooting options, all of the security pieces, all of the networking, all of those private IP address ranges, all of those API PA address ranges, they're all in here. So you don't have to take your own notes. I've already done it for you. So this is something that you're also able to download immediately. There's a PDF version of these you can find at professormesser.com/A+CN. It's $15 for each study guide here, each set of course notes. And these course notes are not only available in PDF form, they're also available in a printed form. So you have an option there when you go to that site, to that link, professormesser.com/A+CN, that you can have a book form of these as well, so that you can take it with you. Maybe some people I've just found like the book. They just like having something they can reference, they can write in. It's all in here. It's the same as what is on the digital version, which I do have up on my screen. I should pull up the digital version and let you see it. Here's what it looks like on my screen. There we go. So here's the 901 course notes. You can see all the details and information directly from my videos, and the 902 is on the right here. So I try to fit everything in there from my course notes. I want to thank you for the folks that have purchased them. Every dollar from this goes back to support the website. Would not be able to keep things going without your support. So thank you so much. Find out more at professormesser.com/A+CN. So let's see if we can really find out what the different options are on this next question. Here's our question. Which of these would be the best example of rapid elasticity? Which of these would be the best example of rapid elasticity? Would it be A, you can quickly scale up and scale down your application infrastructure when needed? Would it be B, as your traffic load increases, your applications become more responsive? Would it be C, when your storage devices are getting full, additional space will be automatically allocated? Would it be D, your application operates both a public and private cloud? Your application operates across both a public and private cloud. And E, you outsource your equipment, but you're still responsible for the application management. One of those would be the best example of rapid elasticity if you're working through these. So maybe you're working through this, you can also consider what these happen to be. This is whenever I start looking at some of these, this is a 902 question for those in the chat room that are wondering about that. I have the details. After each of these questions, you'll notice on the slide, I put exactly the exam objective number in the video that this came from. So you can always find it later. You can, of course, if you're going to professormesser.com/live, you'll be able to see the links and answer the question, which if you go to professormesser.com/QA, you'll be able to answer the question. Whenever you work through these, you really almost have to break down what these things are, because each one of these things I put on the screen are obviously real things. They're things that you do have to manage when you're dealing with servers and applications and operating systems. and only one of them really. Although if I look at this, my question was more of one that you'll see on the exam, which is, which would be the best example of rapid elasticity? But as I'm looking at the answers, really there's really only one good answer here. This should be pretty good to have that there. I think that's one you should be able to step through if you're dealing with something related to rapid elasticity. So let's see how we did with this one and being able to work through these answers. You can see that 57% of you have said A, which is you can quickly scale up and down your application infrastructure when needed. But 24% of you said when your storage devices are getting full, additional space will be automatically allocated. In third place was B, as your traffic load increases, your applications become more responsive. And then a tie for fourth, which would be D and E, which would be your application operates across both a public and private cloud, and you outsource your equipment, but you're still responsible for the application management. There's a lot dealing with here, and these are questions you're going to see a lot more of whenever you're dealing with questions. This is a question that comes directly from the list of things you need to know about cloud computing, and you're going to see a lot more about cloud computing on all of the CompTIA exams, because that's what most of us are doing these days, are using these cloud computing technologies. Even if we're using them in our own infrastructures of private cloud, it's an amazing set of technologies. And all of you should be very familiar with these if you're planning to do anything in technology. Well, one of the first cloud computing technology characteristics that we need to know about is rapid elasticity. This is one of the huge benefits. And this is something I take advantage of. If you're on the Professor Messer website right now, you've gone to my website, you've watched my videos from my website, then you will know that you're hitting my website and viewing this information. I've got multiple servers, though, available. This is all in the cloud. All of my servers, they're not real servers. They're all cloud servers. So I've got a cloud database server. I've got cloud web servers. I've got a cloud caching server. I've got all kinds of equipment that's running virtually, all of these virtual systems. And as things have gotten busy on my site, I started with one server. But as things got busier, I simply spun up another server. I clicked a button, literally clicked a button, and a new server magically appeared out of the ether. And when it did that, I was able to support twice as many people because I had twice as much computing power available to you. And that was a good example of me taking advantage of this rapid elasticity. I was able to instantly scale up to support more people. And if the website becomes even more popular, I'll click a button, I'll scale up another server, and I'll just keep doing it as more people are coming to the website. That means that I don't have to worry about growth. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to do if this becomes mega successful, and how do I handle that? It's already taken care of. And it's not that I had to do anything special. I just had to make sure I was working with a platform like this that provided this rapid elasticity and having it there. So that's one of the main informations that you need to know. Notice that this is from, by the way, those in the chat room are wondering, where did this question come from? I had no idea this was on the A+ exam. A lot of people think the A+ exam is all outdated technologies for some reason. They don't realize that the exam is updated all the time. Every 3 years, you're getting a new set of questions. This comes directly from the 22902 exam objective number 2.3, which is the basic cloud concepts. That's the name of the video if you ever want to go find out more information about this particular question. So if we look at our possible answers, indeed, the 60% of you that did answer, you can quickly scale up and down your application infrastructure when needed, is absolutely correct. That's certainly a benefit of cloud computing, and that's exactly why rapid elasticity is there. That's a good example of rapid elasticity. As your traffic load increases, your applications become more responsive. Generally, it doesn't work that way. Generally, as your traffic load increases, your applications become less responsive because there's more activity on these applications. Rapid elasticity isn't going to speed things up as traffic load increases, although if you take it to its nth degree, we're not really talking about what happens with this, but if you can scale things up, then perhaps the applications will become more responsive. But now you're 2 and 3 steps down the road. I really asked you about the best possible answer with these, and you're going to see this on the exam. What is the best example of rapid elasticity? With nothing else listed, with just saying as your traffic load increases, your applications become more responsive, with nothing else, no context whatsoever, it doesn't work that way at all. It's exactly opposite. the way that it works. When storage devices are getting full, additional space will be automatically allocated. Well, although that's something you can configure, we're really talking about elasticity as being to scale up everything as it's going. And when I'm talking about quickly scaling up and down, that really is the best example of the list of all of these. Your application operates across a public and private cloud, which is very common for applications these days to operate across, merged together in a hybrid mode between both a public and a private cloud. But that is not what rapid elasticity is. And the last option, you outsource your equipment, but you're still responsible for the application management. Whenever you run into those scenarios where it's infrastructure as a service, you're using this physical platform, but somebody else is just sort of handing you the physical platform. It's up to you to manage it. That is not rapid elasticity either. Most of you are right on the money. 61% of you are absolutely correct. You can quickly scale up and scale down the infrastructure when needed. That's what you'll run into with rapid elasticity. Let's have another question. Dealing with mobile devices. Let's see what we can do with these. The question I have for you is dealing with Android. So the question is, your associate has misplaced their Android phone charger. That happens all the time. What type of connector do they most likely need on their replacement charger? This is a scenario you will run into quite a bit. If you want to answer this question, go to professormesser.com/QA, which is right there on the screen. And I've mentioned it 12 times. So, or at least we've gone through 6 questions. So I have mentioned it at least 12 times already to have that there. It's also, by the way, if you're on professormesser.com/live, it's on the screen too. It's right on, just above the video is a link to it. So you can find it very, very, very easily. The possible options. What type of connector would our associate need who has misplaced their Android phone charger? Would it be A, USB-C connector? Would it be B, a Lightning connector? Would it be C, a proprietary connector? Would it be D, a Thunderbolt connector? Or would it be E, a micro USB connector? One of those would be the best choice for connecting the misplaced Android phone charger. Maybe when you went there and figured it out, that would be a great way to do it. Whenever I start working through these questions also, they come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So make sure that you've gone into these objectives as well and you're familiar with everything that will be asked of you. I would expect if you're an Android user, this might be an easy question for you. If you're asking about an option for something else, maybe you carry a different kind of mobile device, maybe this won't be so straightforward in having that there. Some people in the chat room have been complaining about the video stream. Video stream on here looks great. I looked at my stats. The video you're getting is coming directly from YouTube, however. It doesn't come from me. So if you're having any issues relating to the video, it's between you and YouTube, and you might even want to turn down some of the resolution. Maybe it's a problem that you can resolve by using less of the bandwidth. Maybe that would help you with these pieces. So your associate has misplaced their Android phone charger. What type of connector do they need? I think most of us will probably have run into this before, haven't you? I think you have. The question, by the way, is saying what type of connector do they most likely need on a replacement device? And that is what you really have to look for because, as you know, there are so many different kinds of Android devices in the industry, and they're using so many different types of interfaces. But which one would be the most likely one? Well, there's probably only one good answer, and I think most of you have answered it. 84% said micro USB. 12%, interestingly enough, said USB-C, which would definitely not be the right answer right now in the world we live in. Nobody said proprietary. 2% said Lightning. 2% said Thunderbolt. You will find Lightning on mobile devices, but it's generally on Apple devices only. And Thunderbolt, although that is in standard, you won't see that often on mobile devices. It's one you'll see on other types of devices as well, being able to work through those. So what would it be to be able to work through this? Yeah, that's when you'll run into those. Now, why would it be the most likely reason? Why would it be micro USB? And the reason is that it's such a broad and well-used standard. For example, in the EU, one of the standards that they chose very early on was that we were tired of all these proprietary connectors. You have to use a micro USB. In fact, if you buy an Apple device in the EU, you're getting one that has an adapter that goes from their proprietary Lightning connector to a micro USB because of this. So that's what you'll run into. Not many mobile devices these days have any other kind of connector. Some people in the chat room say, but there's new devices that are using USB-C. That wasn't the question. So you make sure you read through the question and know what the possible answers are. The question specifically was that what type of connector do they most likely need on their replacement charger? It's another good example of where two of these could technically be right, except for that word most likely. So that's where you run into whenever you work through those. Yes, EU is indeed the European Union. Thanks for joining for what we're doing here. Let me get back to that and also mention on here when we talk about micro USB and mini USB, you do run into these different standards that are out there, and we never know what's going to be the next set. So you really have to be prepared for anything. But micro USB, when we look at the list of possible answers here, micro USB really was the one that was most likely. Wouldn't be Lightning, wouldn't be Thunderbolt, and certainly not proprietary these days. You imagine a proprietary connector on a mobile device these days? That's one that we used to deal with all the time. These days, whenever anybody comes out with a new type of connector on their phone, everybody gets so upset. And it used to be every phone had a different connector. Imagine every model of every phone had a different kind of connector on it for power, and even a different kind of connector on it for a headphone. That's the way it used to be. So thankfully, the EU said, okay, we need to standardize on this. And it really did help the industry to be able to say that and make sure that every phone had that. I've got pictures in the video on this. You notice this comes directly from the 22901 3.5 mobile device connections. I have a picture in there that shows one machine that will power up mobile devices for almost every kind, all of the different Nokias, all of the different Samsungs, all of the different Apple connectors. And it was this huge list. You imagine if you had to carry around all of these different connectors. And if you did forget your charger at an event, you had to find somebody who had your phone, specific model and manufacturer of your phone, to see if you could use their power, because nobody else could help you. That's one of those challenges you run into whenever you run into this. You don't want to be in that situation. So make sure that you've gone through and you understand exactly the type of situation you'll run into with these. And that's one of the things you have to know for the exam, is the most likely thing you would run into. So make sure you go through and you've got a good familiarity with what those things might be. Whenever you start working through all the different operating systems, all of the different pieces you need to work through, one of the things you may run into is that you have to set up all of these different operating systems for the A+ exam. You have to have Vista, you have to have Windows 7, you have to know Windows 8, really 8.1. So you have to know these three operating systems at a minimum to get through all the different questions on the exam. It's kind of hard to find a Windows Vista these days, certainly difficult to kind of find a Windows 7, but certainly Vista is really difficult to find. Windows 8.1, a little more easier to find. Microsoft doesn't make it very easy. But the folks at GTS Learning have put together labs online you run through your browser that are virtual machines of all of these. So it's like you set up a Vista machine in your lab on your computers and you're running it locally. It's one of the things that I love to do whenever I'm working on these videos that I create, is to create different scenarios. And I've used these live labs online to do exactly that. They are virtual systems. I'm just in the same Chrome browser that I've been using this whole time. I just brought up the system, troubleshooting Windows operating system problems. I'm going to start this. And it brings up, in this case, a single machine that I can work through. But some labs have 6 or 7 machines that I would work on. This one happens to be a single server 2012 that I would work through that has a number of these errors set up on it. Now, at any time, you can power this on, you can power this off. You could go to a different lab and work through a different set of labs. Maybe you want to work through configuring email on a mobile device. Maybe that'd be a good one to work through. They also have both of these available for 901 and 902. This lab has 5 different machines associated with it. You can power all of these on, and you run them as they're completely running operating systems. And some folks in the chat room are even saying Vista's on the exam. It absolutely is. And you will still run into Vista machines out there in the field. And that's why it's still on the exam. People wonder why some of these older technologies are on the exam, because the older technologies still exist in the world. Most of the questions I tell you and work through on the exam about Windows Vista are about upgrading it. And I think that's where CompTIA wants you to be thinking about it as well. You have this Vista machine. How can you get it to be something else? How can you get it up to Windows 7? How can you get it up to Windows 8.1? How can you get it later than that? And you'll run into that. If you're working anywhere in information technology, you will run into a data center and see some really antiquated things, and you need to be ready for it. So it's another very good example. You can see that some of these operating systems have started up. We can even have a look at the Windows 8 device. It's booting right now on my screen. Here's another Windows 8 device. The Windows 7 device is here. So you can work through all of these. Windows 7 Professional, in fact, it's booting up. So this isn't a static type of environment where you have to click on one thing, then click on the other. This is a full-blown virtual machine. So if you wanted to go through and completely ignore what was expected of you in this particular lab, you could do that. You could step through and do all the normal Windows things on this without even paying any attention to, by the way, very good step-by-step live views of what you should be doing. You've got these screenshots that really break it through. So if you can follow the screenshot, you can click on the right thing, you can choose the right piece that you're going after. It's all on the screen and available to you. By the way, this is really fast as well. So if you're trying to work through all of these different pieces on the exam, you've got everything that you can go through. Let's change our account picture. That isn't part of the lab. It doesn't matter. You can go through and work through all of these. It's really fast because it's just a screenshot. You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/livelabs. There's a special price available also, by the way. It's $109 for the ebook and the live labs. So you get not only an A+ book that GTS Learning writes that I use to build my videos, but you also get the live labs for $109, 400 practice questions with that. It's a nice deal. So have a look at the nice folks over at GTS Learning. They got a nice setup there. professormesser.com/livelabs. You have to follow that link to get that pricing, though. If you go to the GTS Learning website, you'll find it's much more expensive. You're wondering why? Because you didn't follow my special link that you get for just being on the study group, professormesser.com/livelabs. I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning. Great bunch of folks. I've enjoyed so much working with them. I like their products, or else I wouldn't be telling you about it directly. So thanks for your support there and supporting GTS Learning as well. Thanks. It does help. Let's get another question in before we run out of time today. Here's a question about operating system permissions. The question specifically, what type of operating system permissions are propagated from the parent object to the cloud, to the child object? I'm stuck in the cloud. Which type of operating system permissions are propagated from the parent object to the cloud object? Would they be explicit, administrative, inherited, workgroup, external? One of those would be the operating system permission that is propagated from the parent object to the child object. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Be a very good way to be able to work through what some of these might be. Maybe you can go through those answers and think, is it this one? Is it not that one? I know it's not this. Could it be one of the others? Do it in your head. Try to figure out these questions and go through it. Maybe you think you know what these are, and being able to work out through all of these pieces. I like to go through these questions when I'm building them and try to make them multiple steps. This one has kind of a one step associated with it. You do have to kind of be familiar with operating system permissions. So maybe there is at least two steps here, but I try to make sure that you get one that makes you think about it. I definitely want you to think about all of these. The live labs, by the way, cover both the 901 and 902. There's not a lot of labbing you have to worry about on the 901. The 901 has networking things that you need to know. There are networking command lines, for example. Most of the labs are 902. And I know the labs on the GTS Learning site, the live labs are labeled 902, but they do include both 901 content and 902 content. So that's useful as well. So let's see how we did with this question. What type of operating system permissions are propagated from the parent object to the child object? 72% of you said inherited, but 23% of you said administrative. Single digits for workgroup, explicit, and external. So what would it be? Interestingly enough here, the two possible options you could have chosen would really have been, anybody care? Well, we'll look at it in a moment. I won't tell you yet to break those up. Let's have a look at permissions though, and try to figure out different kinds of permissions. So what I've got is a set of folders on my site. I have a music folder, and under my music folder, I, of course, have the important albums that I like to listen to, and they're all here for me to be able to do that. And I can set some permissions on this. There are explicit permissions. These are the default permissions whenever you set it for a particular object. You also have permissions that are called inherited permissions, because you don't want to have to go through, what if you had 100 albums? You wouldn't have to want to go through all 100 albums and set all of the permissions for every single one of those folders. It'd be nice if you could just put a set of permission for a single folder, and that'd be your parent object, and then all of the child objects underneath it automatically would have that same permission. So I could set, yes, add the capability to access my music folder, and I can set permissions for that. And by doing that, it's automatically going to set up all of the child permissions underneath it. I don't have to go to any one of those to do that. Now, what if I wanted to change that, though? What if one of those albums was private to me and I didn't want you to have access to it? Well, you can then apply an explicit permission to it. And your explicit permission is going to take priority. Maybe I only want to give you access to one of those albums. So I'll say you can't get to any of my music, nothing whatsoever. None of these really important albums that I love to listen to every day. So these are actually albums that I have. So this is, I never want you to see any of these, but there is one that I want to give you access to. So maybe you've said, I want to hear that particular album. Okay, I'll change just one of those. And because I went in manually and said, yes, I want to give you rights to that manual one, that is an explicit permission. So that takes priority over the inherited permission that was created when I said nobody can listen to my music. So if we look at our possible answers on this one, I think most of you were pretty spot on with this particular question. You said inherited. What type of operating system permissions are propagated from the parent object to the child object? 73% of you got that one absolutely right. It is an inherited permission that does that. There is not an administrative permission that is propagated from the parent object to the child object. In Windows, there's no such thing as an administrative permission. There is either an inherited permission or an explicit permission. And of course, the permissions as well. There's a lot of things you can do dealing with Windows permissions, but when you're talking about how a permission starts in a parent object and moves to the child, we really are indeed talking about C, an inherited permission. The 74% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. Now, by the way, you'll notice on this, some of you were asking in the chat room, as you can see at the bottom of the page here, this is a 22902 question from exam objective number 3.3. The name of the video for this one, if you wanted to learn more, is called Windows Security Settings. And of course, you can find all of those videos to watch for absolutely free on my website. All of my certification videos, every minute of every video is available to watch for free. So you don't have to register anywhere. You don't have to go behind a paywall. There's no secret thing that you have to do. You don't even have to register. I don't want your email address. Unless you want to get on our daily pop quiz, then of course I need it so I can email you. But otherwise, I want to get you as close and have as much access to this content as possible. So that's why I like to be able to provide that information. So well done with that question and being able to find the details associated with it. All of these questions that we are going through in the study group come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Everything. So I'm not making these up. I'm not taking a guess. I'm not giving you topics or things on this list or in my videos that are things you would run into. In fact, this is where I get some of these very specific terms. So in fact, if you were watching this video, for example, for continuing education credit, and you wanted me to send you an hour of webinar-based CEU, this is how you could do it. You could go to the top or the bottom of my website where it says Contact Us. I've got a nice little form in there that asks for your name. It asks for your email address. Make sure you get those right, or I can't get it back to you. I definitely don't want to send it to the wrong place. So make sure your name and your email address are correct. Make sure you put in there, this is the October 2017, whatever day this is, whatever year we're living in, October 2017 A+ study group. And make sure you put in there the secret word of this month, which is inherited. Our permission was inherited. And that's why I want you to use that. That way I know you watch this. And then it takes about a week or so. Sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes a week, depends on what's going on in my world. But be very patient. I will send you back an email that is digitally signed by me that says, indeed, you must have watched this. I certify that you got this 1 hour of webinar-based CEU. So thank you for doing that. If you do not have this list of objectives, make sure you get it. It is the ultimate list of things you need to know on the exam. Go to CompTIA's website and get those pieces through there. This is also a place you can go, professormesser.com/objectives will redirect you over to the CompTIA website. That's another good place to go to get these. So make sure that you have these. If you don't do anything else, if there's nothing else you've learned or anything else you think you might do by watching this live stream, this is the one thing you should do. Everything you need to know is in these exam objectives. Everything that you need to know. So people tell me, what do I need to study? It's in there. It is an extremely detailed list. If you know everything that's in the exam objectives, you will pass your exam. That's how simple it is. It's not simple at all, but the concept is simple. We'll go through that and have those pieces there to be able to work through all of those. We do one of these study groups every month, by the way. Stick around. We still got another hour or so of Q&A that we're going to do on the phone lines coming in. Open up new phone lines. But we have we'll start with another hour of the Q&A that we just did on November the 1st. So if you want to come back when we have another live stream on November the 1st, we're doing another A+ live stream. I do one of these every week. So next week is Network Plus. The week after that is Security Plus. I think here in October, I get a week off. And then we start again at the beginning of November. On my website, on any of the pages, especially the front page, there's even a way you can sign up for the daily A+ pop quiz, Monday through Friday. I send those. It's around the front page in the right sidebar, and you can, of course, sign up for that. We'd love to have you sign up for that, and you just get it in your email. There's a question there and the possible answers, and then you can figure it out. You have to click to find out the answer and getting those pieces through there. It's kind of fun, too. If you're watching this well after November the 1st, you're wondering when is the next live event, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar. We've gone through an hour already. We've got more to come, but if you have to leave, just know that you can watch what we're doing every day. If you don't want to sign up for my email list, I also post to Twitter every day. The daily A+ pop quiz of the day, professormesser.com/Twitter. There's certainly videos and live events like this one that you can be notified of. One good way to do that is to go to professormesser.com/YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It does help a lot when you do that, so thank you so much for doing it. Don't forget about my course notes at professormesser.com/A+CN. They've got the pop quiz collection there at professormesser.com/PQC, and the folks at GTS Learning. I think I've sold enough to you already today. I want to thank you, though, for supporting those products and those people. Thank you for doing that. It helps keep the website going. I would not be able to do this without your help. I would not be able to do these live streams without you being here on the live stream, answering the questions, calling in, what we're going to do over the next hour, asking questions in the chat room. Thank you for that. Thank you for joining us as well. Stick around for the next hour. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. So, in the chat room, people are already saying, get an idle course together. You will never see me create an idle course. I cannot think of anything more painful and less useful for you than to get idle certifications. There's just no good reason. Unless you're an IT manager, then you can call shenanigans on that one. But as for the people I'm focusing on, which are the technical people that need to do stuff in the field, that need to fix the things that are broken, that need to plan and implement and be engineers and do the things like that, I have no idea. Is idle really that bad? Well, you go for it. You try it yourself and you can figure it out. Let me call in and get this going. This won't do very well unless I get on the line. And you can call it. This is the after show, everyone. Welcome to the Professor Messer A+ Study Group after show. I remain your host, James Messer. We're going to set up the phone lines here so you can call in eventually. I'm clicking things on my screen to be able to do this so that you can get there. I have to have the right thing on my screen to host because it's a cloud-based call-in system. So not only are you calling in, I am also calling in. So now it's my turn to call in first, and then you're able to call in. You also put questions in the chat room as well at professormesser.com/live. Let me call in. It will ring, ring, ring. Oh, you're welcome. I type in a thing on my screen that you can't see or hear, and I hit a pound sign.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I think we know why that doesn't make any sense. And then I put this in, 6-digit PIN number. And then it says,
welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Did I start the show? I mean, I've started the show. There I am. There's my host room. So I am in the show, which means that you could also be in the show by calling in at 855. Oh, that's the wrong place. That's the wrong place too. Let's get you here. There it is. 855-785-7545. If you're in the continental U.S., you're able to use that 800 number, toll-free number, to call in. You can also, if you're on Skype, then you can use 0 Skype minutes. It's a toll-free number, so it doesn't cost anything anywhere in the world. You can use this number. I pay for it. There's actually these toll-free numbers are the ones I pay for. So I'm more than happy to do it. You type +1 855-785 RJ45, and you can join us here as well. You can call in, ask anything you'd like. It's an open phone line, so you can ask about certifications. You can ask about A+. You can ask about what warm beverage I'm drinking today from my CompTIA mug. So that's what keeps things going for me. Not even able to do that without the warm beverages. Or just ask what the heck's going on around here, which is a fine question as well. With that, we've got a lot of people in the chat room that are asking questions. We also got people already waiting on the lines. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. And let's go to the 208 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, my name's Sylvan.
Hi, Sylvan. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
I'm calling in because I had a problem with my computer. So it was a work computer, and I turned it on, and the fan started to go really loud, and then I was unable, nothing would come up on the screen.
Doesn't sound very good. It's not very promising. Well, not a good way to start the day, is it?
No, it's not.
What do you think the problem is focused on? Where if you had to troubleshoot this particular problem, where do you think you would start?
Well, I would start by, well, the fan was going, so was it the motherboard?
That's my first thought is, yeah, something has gone wrong with this motherboard. We're getting nothing from it at all. There's nothing on the screen, black screen, nothing shown at all, not even the boot up process.
Nope, not even the boot up process.
Not even the boot up
Just
process.
the fan started to go really fast and hard.
Yep. And as far as you know, nothing changed with it. There wasn't any modification to the computer while it was powered off or any of those things, correct?
Correct.
So, in fact, in the chat room, I think you're in the exact same place I am. I think the chat room is the exact same place. There's like 3 or 4 different things. Did it make any noises? Were there any sounds coming from it?
The fan was going really loud and hard.
Any beeping noises?
Nope, there was no beeping noises. Just you could hear the fan. You could see the light was on the tower, but nothing would come on the monitor.
You've done all the right things then. You've listened to see what was there, and the only thing you're really able to listen to is the fan. You've looked and seen visually, is there anything? Sometimes smell comes into it as well. We're smelling to see if we can smell any smoke, anything that may have burned, anything that might have been hit by lightning or a power surge while the machine was turned off, which is possible as well. And people in the chat room are mentioning that in those pieces. You're in the right place. Those are the 3 places I would probably start as well. The one thing that kind of tells me something has gone awry immediately is that we didn't get anything from the BIOS. The BIOS, obviously, that software is on your motherboard, but it didn't even beep at us. Our system didn't even, the motherboard's responsible for giving us that at least first visual feedback. It tells us that the system's starting up. And if something isn't right, if our memory isn't working, if our video isn't working, it beeps at us because it knows if the video isn't working and the memory isn't working, we can't show you anything on the screen. So it'll just start beeping and making noises like it's stuck at a red light. One of the challenges then, because we didn't even hear it beeping, we have to wonder, why isn't the motherboard doing what it's supposed to be doing? And people in the chat room have mentioned this as well. It could be that the power supply is our biggest problem. Although we heard a fan starting up, now you kind of have to get into more of the internals of the computer and figure out, where is the fan getting its power from? Sometimes you can plug fans into the motherboard. Sometimes you can plug fans directly into the power supply. So I suspect because now the fan is acting a little bit weird this time, that perhaps maybe it's plugged into the motherboard and the motherboard's responsible for doing this. And because the motherboard is not doing anything, then perhaps that's why we're having a problem with the fan. It could also be the power supply. People in the chat room are absolutely right on that one as well. Maybe it has enough power to get power to the motherboard and get the fan going, but not enough power to get the system going. And that's where I think your focus is absolutely correct with this one, to figure out why isn't that motherboard doing what it's supposed to doing. Unfortunately, this problem is a really difficult one to troubleshoot. You could look at the voltages that are coming from the power supply and verify that the power supply is working properly. You could swap out the power supply, and of course you could swap out the motherboard, but those are the two things I think that would help you in your troubleshooting process. Neither of them very fun to do. Lots of wires, lots of screws, and sometimes kind of difficult to get a separate motherboard to try it out. That's always a challenge.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I have one more question.
Sure.
When does the CompTIA, the 900 series, does it end in December or June?
CompTIA has not announced a retirement date for the 901 and 902 exams. We know that they were released on December 15th of 2015, and we know that it takes about 3 years to see an update on these exams. So if we stick to the 3-year date, and usually it's plus or minus, it's not exactly to the day 3 years, but that tends to be, they try to make it that anyway. We know that 3 years from December 15th, 2015 is December 15th of 2018. So we've got plenty of time before we expect to see a new version suddenly appear from CompTIA. And usually they will give you a warning when that's about to happen. The other thing they also do is the existing 901 and 902 doesn't end on that day. They actually overlap it sometimes as much as 6 months, sometimes even more, but usually 6 months is the number I kind of stick with. So we'll probably see the 900 series exam still be available to take well into the middle of 2019. So if you're looking at trying to get your A+ certification, now's the time to do it. The existing 900 series exams are not going away. You've got plenty of time to work on all the things you need to do. There's plenty of time to study because you have well into 2019 to be able to pass both of those exams to get your A+ certification.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Professor Messer. I think you're awesome.
Thanks, Sylvan. Appreciate the call. There's plenty of things to worry about on the exam, and one of the things I tell people is don't worry about the dates on the exam. You should, of course, look on the website and see if CompTIA has announced a retirement date for the exam. For example, the Security Plus exam is when they've announced a new exam will be released this month. And they've also announced that the current version of the Security Plus will be available to take and will be retired in July of next year, of 2018. So you have more than 6 months of study. So when somebody's saying now, which version of the Security Plus should I take? I usually right now say, take the current version. Don't take the new one. When the new one comes out initially, there's not a lot of study materials available. So your best bet is to take the things that are available to you, which would be the current version of the exam. Doesn't matter which version of the exam you take, you end up getting the same certification. So the exam versions are really about what questions you get. They're not about the certification that's ultimately listed under your name. So that's something to think about as well. Back to the calls. Folks are holding. I'm so sorry. 702 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, Professor Messer. My name is Daniel.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hey, so I was attending your study group right now, and I wanted to talk about the performance-based question that you were offering in the beginning.
Sure. Hit me. What question do you have?
I believe that the question... Okay, so the question you stated there that you wanted to place the highest throughput to the lowest throughput, and I see that the 82.11n has two throughputs. For one stream it's 150, and for the second one it's 600 megabits. And I just wanted to I'm not sure if you chose, I believe you chose the 150 megabits, and I just wanted to know why 600 megabits wasn't the answer.
Oh, that's because I didn't write the word stream in there, Daniel. It's that simple. Folks in the chat room, we've been saying that. Wait, do you mean the single stream of 802.11n, or do you mean the possible total throughput of the entire standard if you were to use all the streams together? And as you can see by the answer, I really did mean a single stream. But if you answered it and thought, oh no, it's going to be 600 megabits, because if you add 4 streams together with 802.11n, that's what you're going to get with that. I think you'd be perfectly correct. In fact, if you could actually recognize the difference, you probably get extra credit, Daniel.
All right. No, that's basically the only question I had. Thank you so much. I just wanted clarification. I think the issue with me is just me reading the question thoroughly.
Yep.
And I think that's what I think a lot of us have.
Me and you, absolutely. And the fact that you were able to catch that in the question means that you absolutely understand the concept, everything in the concepts associated with 802.11n. So well done with that. And you're right. Reading these questions, whenever I sit down for the exam initially in the room is the worst time for me. There's a lot of adrenaline going through me. I'm ready to get started with the exam. Yeah. I'm nervous as I'm sitting down for the exam. What am I going to be faced with? There's a lot of uncertainty. Fortunately, I have a local study or a local exam center that I go to a lot when I do these. So I've become very comfortable with the location. So that part's off the table. But I will read through that first question 4 times and still not understand what it's saying, even though it's plainly written. It's a perfectly fine question, but my brain can't process it yet. So it takes me a while to settle down and get into the groove with those. So I'm right there with you.
Got it. Thank you so much, Professor. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. That's my biggest problem too, and having all of these available. Whenever I start working through what is the right part, what is not the right part with the exams, there's no right way to do it. I've kind of got my own system when I walk in the door. Everybody just needs to find their best way to get that anxiety level down so that you can answer these questions and make it work as great as possible. Daniel, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it. I'm going to step through these other questions. We'll go to the 607 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, my name is Melissa.
Hello, Melissa. Welcome to the party. Did we lose you already, Melissa?
I just want to know if
yes.
I just want to know if those things in your ears are earbuds or hearing aids.
You have to wonder. My better half thinks they should be hearing aids. They look like hearing aids, but they know these are indeed monitors that are stuck in here. These are, I want to say, Sennheiser. I'm going to take this one out. You would think, as old as I am and as bad as I hear things and as badly as I can see things, that these would indeed be hearing aids. But not yet. Not yet, Melissa. There are still a few years yet before I have to worry about that. So we have the advantage of not worrying about all of those pieces. The other thing that I do, I think the other side of it is the one people have asked about this. So I'm going to take that somewhat comical question and I'm going to make something of it. This is a 215 model of, is it Sennheiser? Or is this the Shure? It's the Shure 215, I think it is. So that's what I'm using in my ear, is that particular model. It's not actually a very expensive, they call them monitors. They're just headphones, just earbuds. It's not an especially expensive model, but it is a one that I'm just doing audio. There's no real music going on here. But it's a really nice fit. I put on some foam pieces on the end of it. So I've modified it just a little bit to be able to get there. But it works extremely well to have those pieces there. Let's go back to the calls. We had a nice techie call there. 520 area code. Are you there? What's your name?
Steve.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
In your list of 600 questions, 1-3 about computer management.
Oh, let's.
The answer was B, change user passwords.
Okay.
Local user passwords. Can you just demonstrate that? I can't find where you change passwords to computer management.
Well, let's back it up just a little bit. You were talking specifically about the 902 pop quiz collection. These are the sample, the book I have that has the 600 questions in it for the 902 exam. And which question specifically were you asking about?
1-3.
Okay, let's have a look at that. Everybody's going to join us on the live stream. We're going to look at it together. Question 1-3 from the book says, let me scroll down here. Which of these would be a common function from the computer management console? And the possible answers are: restore the master boot record, change a local user's password, modify the BIOS device boot sequence, add a Windows firewall rule, or update the Windows operating system file. And that's where I've kind of asked which one of those are. We're going to, in your minds, where you can think about it in this book, because it's a PDF book, after each one of these questions, there's a jump to answer link that takes you right to the page with the answer on it. That's how fast this thing is. I'm kind of doing an ad here. Well, you've asked a very specific question, but that's kind of what this has run into. And the answer I have here is change a local user's password. And I mentioned on here that the computer management console includes many administrative tools such as Task Scheduler, Event Viewer, Device Manager, and local users and groups. And that's where it's getting this from. This is from the 22902 exam, Objective 1.4, the Windows Administrative Tools. And I've even got a link here. I have a link shortener that I use, not really very short. It's professormesser.link, and a special URL at the end of it that takes you to the exact video where I have these things on there. What you have to do, the computer management console by default may or may not have the plugin turned on or loaded that has that, but it's in the local users and groups that ultimately you can drill down to be able to change anything associated with a local user and group. That's where that question was coming from. And in fact, the different options in here, restoring the master boot record, modifying the BIOS, adding a Windows firewall rule, updating the Windows operating system file, none of those by default are listed in the computer management console. So I went with the one that should pop up automatically, although of course this does depend on which version of Windows you're using. So that was the idea, the mindset I had when I was building that question out. Did I lose you, Steve? I might have lost Steve. But that's okay. So that's what I was thinking about whenever I was trying to build out that question and say, here's where I'm trying to access that. That's where I was going. It's the local users and groups option or a plugin or add-on inside of the computer management console. Hopefully that clears things up for that particular question.
Well, I may not have that plugin added. That'd be on a domain, or
you should be able to go to I think it's the file pull down menu. It's one of those where you can add another plugin or another module associated with it. I may even be able to get up. I think I've got the separate Windows 7 still running here on my screen. I should be able to have a look at that one and plug through the Windows 7 screens. Maybe I can find it while we're doing other things here and having these pieces available. That might be something, computer management console, and have these pieces. And I'll bring it up. I'll try to bring it up on my screen. And although you're on the looking at you're on the phone, you can't look at the screen. But one of the things on the screen is, for example, under the computer management that comes up by default, you have the system tools, which include the Task Scheduler, Event Viewer, Shared Folders, Local Users and Groups, Performance, and Device Manager. And it is indeed the Local Users and Groups option that allows me to quickly choose a user and then drill down and make changes to it, like changing the password, changing the properties of that user, and making sure that you're able to do anything you'd like. That's exactly where I got that from the computer management. Hopefully that helps, Steve.
yes, I don't have that local user groups.
I'm using this particular one. This would probably one you'd find in Windows Vista, Windows 7. I think Windows 8.1 has that as well. Obviously, Windows 10. I don't think Windows 10 has it, but Windows 10 isn't part of the CompTIA A+ exam, so I don't have to worry about that part.
Okay, I have Windows 10, so that might be it.
Aha.
On Windows 7.
That's one of the challenges. By the way, if you need a copy of Windows 8 and perhaps even Windows 7 to work with, so you can work through some of these since you're using Windows 10, you can go to Microsoft's developer website to be able to do this. I'll find the one that I have. It is modern.ie is a quick way to get there. Modern.ie takes you to the Microsoft Edge developer page. And underneath that is a tools pull down that includes a set of virtual machines that you can specifically use for testing and for working on your exam. So if you need Windows 7 or Windows 8.1, they've got VMs all ready to go for VirtualBox, for the VMware's products, for other virtual machines that you might be running in your operating system. So it's a great way to download, and immediately if you got Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 that you can work with, and you don't have to spend any money, which is even better. And Steve is overwhelmed. He can't believe it. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the call. And it's a great question, too. Thanks so much.
Later.
That's one. A lot of people don't realize these VMs are out there and available from Microsoft. So make sure you take advantage of those. Have them there. Let's go to another caller. You've been holding so long. Thank you, caller 559 area code. What's your name? Oh, they've already 17 minutes have elapsed since they called in, and they've gone to sleep. They've had it. They're not listening anymore. They can hear the stream. I can hear the stream, but they're just not picking up the phone anymore. They've had it. But I'm going to return them to the queue. We won't hang up on them. No. We'll just have them right in there. Let's go to another caller, the 301 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, Anita.
Hi, Anita. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Well, I want to know if you've taken the A-plus exam or if you've taken any exam and a new one comes up, but it hasn't been the 3 years. And if you sit for the newer exam, will that, will that negate the one you already have?
So you're thinking, have you already, we say exams here, but we may also mean certifications. So let's clarify this a bit.
Certification.
So let's say you sat down and you got the A+ certification. Let's say you took the 801 and the 802, the previous version, or even took this current version. You took the 901 and 902, you passed both of them, and you got A+ certified, right?
Correct.
And let's say tomorrow, they're not going to do this, but let's say tomorrow, CompTIA releases the 1001 and the 1002, whatever the next version is going to be. That's a weird number, but that's sort of, we follow the path. It was a 701, 801, 901. Let's say the 1001 comes out tomorrow, but you just passed it yesterday. You just got your certification yesterday. Are you asking then what happens at that point to your certification?
No, I know the certification that I got yesterday is still good, but what if, I just want to take it just for my own kicks and giggles.
You could.
So I take it, and if I take it, and for some reason, like you said, a lot of the information is not out yet, so therefore I don't pass it. What happens to the certification I got yesterday?
That's a pretty good question. And the answer first is that I will let you know, and most people don't realize this, is once you take an A+ set of exams, you take the 901 and you pass it, you can't take the 901 again. Once you have passed a numbered exam from CompTIA, you can't ever go back and take that 901 again. You're done. You've already passed it. You've proven you know it, and that's it. And if you take the 902 and you pass it, you can't take the 902 again. But if they come out with a new series of exams, they come out with the 1001 and 1002, you can absolutely take those exams. That is, in fact, they use that as an example that if you wanted to use those new exams as a way to renew your existing certification, you could possibly do that. I think that's probably the hardest thing you could choose to do to renew your certification, but you could do that. CompTIA allows you to do that. They have no problem with you taking a newer version of an exam that you have not taken, that if you have not passed before, they're fine with that. If you end up taking it and you don't pass it, well, nothing changes for you. You obviously are not going to be able to renew your certification from that because you didn't pass the exam, but you also don't lose your existing certification for that. As far as CompTIA is concerned, you're exactly where you were before you walked into the exam room.
Okay, so I would just be taking it for practice just to see if I can pass it. Okay.
You could. You've got Anita she has money to burn. She is independently wealthy. She could take these exams. One thing you'd have to keep in mind, though, of course, is that when you take an exam, you can register to take it again immediately, or they may actually have implemented a 2-week period after the first one now. But you may want to check the CompTIA websites because they do change this occasionally. The retake policy is always changing there. So make sure that if you take an exam and you're planning to retake it, in the case of something bad happening, that you know how long you may have to wait to do that. But yes, you could take it as in fact, if you have the ability to do it, some people are given the free take on their exam that they could take it, and they do it sort of as a pretest and sort of to understand how do they ask the questions and what type of questions should I be prepared for. Obviously, if you take the exam again, it's going to be a completely different set of questions, but it does help you with understanding what you might be faced with. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anita. That's all kinds of interesting scenarios you can run into with the exams, and that's a good one as well. Let's go to, we just did 559. I think we're going to do 559 area code again. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
Hi, what's your name?
Oh, Brian. My name is Brian.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
I'm trying to get a career into IT, and I believe I need a A+ certification, but I don't know where to start, like what to study or what exactly to begin with.
And the idea of getting the A+ certification, have you read through a job posting that said, we prefer people with an A+? Have somebody recommended that to you? What's driving you towards the A+ certification specifically?
I just thought it was like the entry level of IT. What I've been wanting to do is, I've been wanting to do IT since I was in middle school, but I wasn't quite sure what to do or what to begin with. So I just needed advice with that.
Okay. That is you're absolutely on track, is that many people in the IT industry consider the A+ certification to be that entry-level certification into anything information technology related. It is a good starting point to be able to do those things. It's also a situation where it can be very geographical or kind of a one-off situation as well. For example, there are some people that will hire people specifically who do not have their A+ certification because they like to pay people a little bit less, and they will train you as they go. It's just one of the ways some businesses do it. Some businesses require that you have the A+ certification before they even consider you for an entry-level position in their organization. So it really depends on the organization. It also depends geographically. In the U.S., the A+ certification is well considered. Outside of the U.S., in different countries, there's no mention of it whatsoever. So you do have to think about where you're getting a job. I tend to tell people, if there's a particular job you're shooting for, maybe in a particular segment or with a particular company, go out to the websites that have the job postings and see what those companies are asking for. There's probably a help desk position that has been advertised in the past or that is currently being advertised. What are they wanting? Are they specifically mentioning the A+ certification? Are they mentioning Microsoft certifications? Are they mentioning any certifications so that you can have a good feel for perhaps one of the things they're thinking of? Now, one of the things I read last week, which was really good, is that the A+ certification really can never hurt you. So even if they aren't specifically asking for it, it's kind of nice to be able to pull that out of your pocket and say, well, I actually have this certification, which should help you understand more about the things that I know. I also tell people that it's not just any one thing. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another question?
So if I actually do want to pursue the A+ certification, what exactly do I have to study, or like how do I begin to study for the exam?
CompTIA is the company that manages the A+ certification. I would recommend going to the CompTIA website, going to their A+. They document everything there you would ever need to know. And I think that's one of the best places that you can go. There's a list of exam objectives there that can help you. There's a list of items that can help you study. You can, of course, go to the Professor Messer website where everything is there from a video course perspective. And I also have an introductory video there that can help you as well, that might answer a lot of the questions you have relating to it. So that might be a good place to go as well. Certainly one that can help you get oriented to figure out what direction do I go next. Let's go back to the phones. We got the 240 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
My name's Nathaniel.
Hey, Nathaniel. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I had a question. I heard that the A+, the Net Plus, and the Security Plus were going to be wrapped up into one kind of like trifecta exam from CompTIA. Or maybe they were going to do some sort of certification that says that you have all three. Is that real?
At the beginning of the summer of this year, CompTIA announced that they were going to provide a new title for people that had the A+, the Network Plus, and the Security Plus certifications. This was not a one test that you would take that would wrap all three of them together. Instead, they were saying that if you went and passed all three of these, we would call you the whatever the name was. The name doesn't come to mind immediately. It's like the infrastructure expert or the CompTIA infrastructure something associated with that. And they said it would be around after the summer. You should see that being rolled out. And they have not rolled. It's October, so they haven't quite rolled it out yet. You can tell because I don't even remember what the name is associated with it. I'm not sure. I'm not part of CompTIA. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't talk to people at CompTIA. I have no idea what they're planning. I don't know if they still plan to do it. I don't know if they plan not to do it. There was people asking this in the Reddit subreddit for CompTIA, I think last week or the week before.
Actually.
The CEO of CompTIA responded to this and didn't answer the question. So we still don't know. In typical CEO form, they gave a great management answer that didn't actually answer the question. So we still don't know. It's still a mystery. So my recommendation would be to keep waiting. Maybe we'll see something soon.
Cool.
Well, good luck with that. I think it's a pretty nice thing for CompTIA to do. You've worked hard to get your A+, your Network Plus, Security Plus. It's kind of nice to put a nice bow around that so that everybody can see the hard work you've done.
Yeah. Well, thanks, James. I appreciate all your videos and everything.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
That you're doing out here.
You're quite welcome, sir. I appreciate your call. That's one of the things that I run into is trying to find the right information. I expect it'll be at the CompTIA Infrastructure Professional. Thank you, website. Thank you, chat room. That is what they're going to call it, we think. So just keep checking the CompTIA website. I'm sure they're going to roll it out and let us all know what's going on with that. The 818 area code, are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Robert.
Hey, Robert. Thank you for calling. What question do you have today?
Well, I'd like to know approximately how much of the test is on Mac and Linux.
What a good question. Are you someone who does a lot with Mac and Linux?
No,
That's the question.
I'm primarily a PC guy. I'm primarily a PC guy, and I need to know how much I need to study of Mac and Linux to pass the test.
This is a pretty good question then, especially for you. Fortunately, CompTIA has documented all of this in their exam objectives. If you go to professormesser.com/objectives, you'll be able to pull that up. This is directly from, and the only place this is on is the 220-902 exam. And on the 220-902 exam, I'm going to scroll down just a bit. The section dealing with other operating systems and technologies is domain 2.0, which is 12% of the exam. If I go to that section in the exam objectives, that deals with best practices, tools, features, Linux commands, which interestingly enough are also the commands you would use at the command line of a Mac OS 10 device. But that same section 2, that is the 12% of the exam, also includes client-side virtualization questions. It also includes the basic cloud concepts. We talked, for instance, about rapid elasticity today on the Q&A that we did in the first hour. That's part of Section 2.
Yeah, I saw that.
Section 2 is also about summarizing the purpose of services provided by network hosts like web server, DHCP server, authentication servers, UTM, and IPS embedded systems. And it even talks about basic features of mobile operating systems, the difference between Android and iOS and Windows, the difference between all of these different connectivity options for mobile devices. All of this stuff's in Section 2. So you're getting into mobile devices, lastly, and even mobile device synchronization. So of all the things in Section 2 is 12% of the exam, and Mac and Linux is one part of how many different sections? Of 7 different sections that are in Section 2. So if I had to, we never know exactly the number it would be. I mean, technically, they could have all 12% of the questions could be about Mac OS 10 and Linux, but in reality, it's probably going to be a much smaller percentage than that.
Okay, great.
That is kind of good for someone if you're
in trouble. Go ahead.
There's so many different questions in here about Mac and Linux. Just the Linux commands. There's how many? 12, 15 commands? So I get it. If you've never touched these commands before, how much time do you spend memorizing all of these commands if it's going to be well less than 12% of the exam? That's a question you have to answer for yourself.
Okay. I work on PCs a lot and occasionally Macs, and I've had pretty good success rate of troubleshooting Macs so far. even though I'm not thrilled about having to do it.
One of the things you'll find on the exam, though, is they don't go into a lot of command line on the Mac side, but you do have to know about Time Machine. You have to know how to get to the terminal. You need to understand about how screen sharing works there, how remote disk is, what is Boot Camp. These are things, if you've never touched a Mac, you have no idea what Boot Camp and iCloud and the Finder is. But if you've probably been doing some troubleshooting, I bet you've run into them at least once.
I've done all of that many times.
Yeah, so you're going to be fine for that section of the exam, I feel sure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you have out there, and I'm planning on purchasing several of your exam questions.
Well, I thank you for your call. Thanks for the question, and good luck with your exam. And I also appreciate the support. It does help to keep the website going. Thanks, Robert. That's whenever you start looking at the exam. Someone's mentioning this also earlier on, I think it was on the CompTIA subreddit, is they were talking about having a struggle with trying to figure out IP subnetting. And they're thinking, should I be spending days of my time trying to figure this out? And it's one same scenario where it's a little section of a little part of a bunch of other things that are a smaller percentage on the exam. Should you really be spending days on one item that's on here, or should you instead be focusing on everything else? And I think the answer is probably to focus on the other things. The 559 area code again. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes, my name is Henry.
Hey, Henry. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I've been having, I'm an IT, I've been in the IT industry for the past 7 years.
Nice.
I've really been having issue with my time studying for A+ exam, and it's really affecting me. So I don't know. So I saw some of your material last year. That was last year when I intended preparing for the exam.
Okay.
But I couldn't continue the preparation. So I just want to know the latest material and which, I think the exam changed or something. Okay, it's still 902. So I don't know which advice you have for me. I really need to do this exam because it's also affecting my job role.
Well, you're in luck that the latest exams, the 22901, the 22902, came out in 2015. So if you were studying last year, or gosh, even the year before, was really the end of 2015. So we could say the beginning of 2016 is when the 900 series came around. If your study materials say that they're for the 22901 and the 22902, that is still the latest version of the exam. So anything that you studied previously, you're in great shape. And as long as the study materials that you're using say the 22901 and 902, you're still in great shape. As we mentioned on a call earlier, you've got until the end of 2018 before we will even see another exam version come along. And even then, we probably even have another 6 months that we could take the 900 series exams. So you've got plenty of time right now. And fortunately, it sounds like you don't have to relearn anything that you might have missed because of any changes, because I'll bet that if you were studying at the beginning of 2016, that you're fine. You don't have to go back and restudy any of those things. Maybe just refresh your memory.
Okay. What about the material you had on your website? I can't really find the link. I've tried to browse through one second time.
Well,
I don't know if those materials are still available.
Oh, yeah. Everything is still there. In fact, if you just go to ProfessorMesser.com on the front page, there's an entire section there on A+ that says all of my free videos are there. My option for my course notes is available there. All of the sample questions that are available, links right there on the front page. They're also available from a pull-down menu on my website. I'm talking to my screen here as if I have no way to demonstrate any of this to you. So for the people that are watching, you can indeed go to the Professor Messer website. Oh, there's the chat rooms. Hello, chat rooms. We'll minimize the chat rooms. And there's an entire section for A+ where you could go in and watch the 900 series videos. And that's all of the free videos on my site. You can also get to them from the CompTIA A+ training pull-down menu that is available on my site as well. Everything is right there that you would ever need to be able to find that right on the Professor Messer website, Henry.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. What was that, Henry?
The practice questions, if you have them.
Do I
practice question? If you have practice question.
Oh, you mean like the performance-based questions?
Yes. or practice question or something like that?
Oh, the practice questions. Absolutely. Under the A+ training pull down, there is a link for pop quiz practice tests, and there are hundreds of A+ questions on there. There's also a link once you get to that page, and there's a link under my A+ study recommendations for my books that have over 1,300 questions in them. So I've got other books that you could buy that have over 1,000 questions total for the A+, 901 and 902.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome, sir, and good luck with that. It's one of those things that I want. It's kind of a balancing act with me. I want to give you enough content for free that you could just pass the exam with everything. But some people want more of these things. So we've got those extra products there. And we've even got more things in the chat room. They're even saying, I need Network Plus Pop Quiz book. There's a bunch of new things and new technologies I'm working on that will give you some of these. So it may not be a book. It may be something even more interactive. But I'm looking at different ideas to be able to give you these things. So just stay tuned. All of this, for some reason, takes time. A little bit more of a challenge. The 706 area code I've been holding a while. Thanks so much for holding. What's your name?
Hey, I'm LaSalle. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, LaSalle. You're quite welcome. What can we do for you?
All right. So I'm currently studying for the A+, as the first step to transitioning to IT from a different career.
Okay.
And my plan is to set up a home lab while taking apart a computer, putting it back together, and kind of documenting those steps.
Great.
As a home lab.
Okay.
Can you suggest any other labs that would be helpful for like an entry person to IT?
Yeah, well, the A+ certification, the 901 exam especially does a lot with the hardware. But when you get into the 902 exam, there's not a whole lot of hardware associated with that. And I think being able to open up a computer, get into the inside, understand what all the different components are is going to help you a lot. In my book, for instance, one of the performance-based questions I give is a picture of a motherboard, and then you have to figure out what all the different pieces are on the motherboard. I think those are important skills to have regardless of what you end up doing in IT. It tends to help me throughout my entire career. The thing that you may want to also consider doing, I mentioned earlier about the virtual machines out at modern.ie. Those are the free VMs that you can use for non-production use that come directly from Microsoft. And you can load up Windows 7 and load up Windows 8, run it in a virtual machine on your computer, and be able to run through all the command lines they expect you to know, understand how to work with and troubleshoot the operating system itself. On the 902, there's just as much operating system troubleshooting as there is hardware troubleshooting that you might have seen on the 901. So don't discount either of those. You're going to need a combination of those.
Okay. All right. That is good advice. So basically, along with the hardware, make sure that I'm familiar with the software. As far as the A+ is concerned.
Absolutely. The CompTIA A+ exam objectives is the first thing you'll want to grab.
Yeah.
The objectives for the 901, the objectives for the 902, they really do detail everything you need to know. And they'll tell you, here's the exact commands you need to know to be able to pass the networking part of your 901. Here's the exact commands you need to know to pass the hardware, the operating system troubleshooting part of the 902. So it will spell it out for you, but you got to make sure you have the tools so you're able to test yourself.
I agree. Yeah, I actually do have both the 902 and 901 objectives printed out. I guess my main concern is getting to the interview and being asked, other than the certification, what is your experience? Being able to point to the lab and other things.
It is, and it's sort of a multi-pronged thing. I haven't mentioned this on today's live stream, so I'll mention it with your call, is that it's never any one thing, of course. It's like everything else in life, I guess. Certifications are incredibly useful. Make sure that you can take advantage of having those. It certainly helps you over somebody who doesn't have the certification. That's only one prong of the things that you need to be able to do. The other one, if you have the ability or have any type of formal education, even if it isn't isn't necessarily in information technology. A formal education, a 4-year degree helps immensely when you get into these types of roles because people understand that you're someone who has been trained and can be trained further. There's my particular 4-year degree was in business management, had nothing to do with technology. So I use that just as an example of being able to leverage something to be able to use it in that particular role. The other piece that I mentioned is hands-on, as much hands-on as you can get. I will often, when I'm in an interview with somebody for a position, I'll ask them, what's your home lab look like? What equipment are you using in there? What are you doing with that? And if they have a home lab, great. We can talk about the details. Or if, like you, I got a machine, we pulled it apart, I put it back together. These are great stories to use in an interview, and they're things that can only help you. And the fourth one, and people I don't think use it enough as they should, is that in your geographical area, there may be user group meetings you can attend, either generic technology user group meetings or Microsoft user group, Cisco user group, Apple user group. Doesn't matter, because the people that go to these user group meetings, especially the Microsoft user group meetings, those are people that work in these companies in your area that are the Microsoft people. And the more people you know in an organization, the better chance you're going to have when you walk in that interview, because you can say, oh yeah, I know Bob who works in your Microsoft team because I know him from the user group meeting. So people like to hire people they know. And if there's a connection there, then that just helps you even more. So don't rely on any one thing. Rely on a smattering of different things to help you when you walk in that door.
Okay. All right. Great advice as always. I appreciate it.
Thanks, LaSalle. Take care. That's what a good question, though. And it's something everybody should be working on those and having them there. Let's go to the 732 area code. Are you there, caller? Been waiting.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for waiting. What's your name?
My name is Landon.
Hi, Landon. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Professor, actually, I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you very much for everything you put into this. I just got my A+ recently, and I couldn't be more appreciative towards all the work you put into this, man.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. How, in your opinion, how were the exams? Were they harder or easier than what you were expecting?
I would say they were pretty much just as what I expected them to be.
Good.
However, I would tell anybody who hasn't gotten their A+ yet that it's not a joke. There are some difficult questions on there, and they do require study time.
This is the thing that I think people get wrapped up in, because if you read online, people in some of these forums tend to dismiss the A+ certification. And anytime I see somebody who's doing that, I always check to see, is this someone who's even ever taken these exams? Because they are not a cakewalk. You do have to study for them. There's a lot of material. And I think I took my A+ certification. The first one I took, I think, was the 600 series. And I took that after having 10 or 15 years in the industry doing computer related things. I really had to study for that exam. It's not a cakewalk. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, I really appreciate it, and I'm on my way to getting the rest of my certification. So on behalf of myself and the rest of my class, we thank you.
That's great to hear. Congratulations, and you're more than welcome, sir. And best of luck. That's always good to hear. Thanks, Landon. That's one of those things that sort of a win-win here. I'm able to make these videos available in these live streams, and we're able to put together these just an amazing set of resources for free. And that was the whole idea, so that people will be able to take advantage of them, get a job, get a better job. That's always been my goal as I went through information technology, as I changed from somebody doing remote site break fix. I moved into corporate help desk. I started doing operating systems at the desktop. I moved to server operating systems, moved from there into networking, moved from networking into security. Had no idea that path was waiting for me, had no idea it was something I would even be interested in doing. But every step along the way was the right step. It always is, right? Even the parts that were bad. I took some bad steps. Turns out they were the right steps. Just those jobs where you just want to jump right into the fire. You've had it, the job, you made a horrible decision. Now you're stuck in this job. Turns out those were pretty good jobs. When you look back on it, who knew when you work through those? That's the irony of the whole situation. Back to the phones real quick. We still got some coming in. The 919 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Oh, no, they dropped off. So that's okay. You're welcome to call back in on the phone lines. We've got the phone lines up there, 855-785-7545. Before we are able to disconnect this, there were some questions that did come up in the chat room as well. When you look at my course notes on the website, the question came up specifically. I might as well address these with the course notes. I'll bring them up so you can see them. We can talk about them. You have two options when you're buying my course notes. And one option, well, there's really four options when buying my course notes. Here they are. You can buy both A+ PDF course notes. This is the digital version of my course notes in PDF format for $30. There's the 901 that you can buy. Those are the PDF version, and the 902, the PDF version. The 901, 902 book and PDF is a physical book version. It's this version of it. This is what that's talking about, is the physical version of the PDF notes. But you get both the book and the PDF. So you can immediately download the PDF and start using it, and then I ship you the book. And I ask for your address and shipping information. I send you the book directly. That's what that's referring to. So I apologize. I probably should make that a little bit clearer on there so you're able to get through those pieces and figure them out. We've got time for at least one more call, I think. So let's go to the 202 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name? Are you there? Are you there, caller?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name?
It's Kenyatta.
Hi, what can we do for you?
I have a question about the certification.
All right. Let's see if we can figure out those pieces. It was a very funny question about the certification. There is a lot more happening later on this month. October is a busy time. The Security Plus certification is updated this month, so the 501 comes out. For those of you that have been watching all of the things going on the Security Plus side, you know that we're working on those things and trying to get through them. So there'll be new content coming out for that. A+, we don't have to worry about, though. Our A+ content remains the same well into next year, so we're in good shape there. There is another A+ study group, November the 1st. So we do one every month. You're welcome to come back in November and do that. But you can always contact me on my website. If you go to the Professor Messer website, at the top of the page is a link for Contact Us. I've got all my WordPress stuff on the page, but there's a Contact Us link right there on the page. You're able to go there. In fact, at the bottom of the page, I think I've also got one too. Hopefully I'll be able to keep that. I'm planning to make some changes to the website, but I think they'll look for Contact Us. That's how you can get in touch with me throughout the week. That way you don't have to worry about trying to find me on a live stream. I try to respond to as many emails as I can, so feel free to contact me there. And also, don't forget about the next month's study group. There's also a calendar. You can find out when the next live event is at professormesser.com/calendar on the website. That's another great place to go to find out where you can talk live in the chat. We can go back and forth, figure out all of those pieces. It's another great place to also figure out how you can get a little bit more training and try to get as much in as possible. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the study group this month. We have had some great questions. Thanks for your participation. Thanks for all the phone calls. I'll be glad to do it again. We'll see you in November for the next A+ study group. Thanks, everyone.